To answer the question on previous slide, why scale? Well, we need lots of power to exploit the phenomenon of time dilation in special relativity. And so here's a brief review of special relativity. This is Einstein's theory of gravity, theory of relativity. And essentially, the central postulate in his theory is that the speed of light is the same no matter how fast you go. It's the same for all observers, regardless of their speed. And one consequence of that is that matter cannot go faster than light. You can approach it, you can get very close to it, but you can never actually reach it. It will take an infinite amount of energy to travel exactly at the speed of light, and matter cannot exceed that speed. But another prediction that it makes is that time dilates at very high speeds. And this phenomenon is often described in terms of the so-called twin paradox. It's not really a paradox, but it looks like it at first. And the idea is that you have two twins, one travel at a velocity, at a speed that's very close to the speed of light for some time. And of course, where the paradox comes in is that if one twin observes the other twin will appear to be moving more slowly. And in fact, if one of the twins reads the clock of the other twin, then the clock will look like it ticks more slowly. And this goes both ways. Now, of course, this symmetry is broken if one of the twins accelerates. So one of the twins in this example, so this is a space-time diagram, and one of the twins accelerates to a very high speed, stops, and then accelerates back towards the first twin and meets the first twin. And what ends up happening is that the twin that accelerates and travels back will have aged less than the twin that stayed still and did not accelerate. So really it has to do with the acceleration of the twin. And so this is a phenomenon that is predicted by special relativity. And of course, the question is whether you can exploit it. And in fact, this question is one that Carl Sagan studied back in the 1960s. And he had this very simple model of linear motion. So the idea is that you accelerate at 1g, and the acceleration will feel equivalent to what we experience on Earth. We experience a gravitational acceleration of 1g, and it's as if you were in a spaceship. So if you were in some room, you couldn't tell the difference between that room sitting on the surface of the Earth or accelerating with an acceleration of 1g in space. And this is the equivalence principle of Einstein. So you accelerate at 1g for half the trip, and then you decelerate at 1g back to rest for the remaining half of the trip. And if you do this for 20 years of ship time, you can travel a distance of 20,000 light years. And of course, on the Earth, we would see this trip take place, and it will take place over a period of 20,000 years, as observed on Earth, give or take. But of course, on the ship, only 20 years will have elapsed. So this is Carl Sagan's model, and of course he extends this even further. You can continue to accelerate, and in fact you can reach virtually any point in the Milky Way, and perhaps you can go quite far beyond with this continuous acceleration model. And of course the problem that remains is that if you have a round trip, of course thousands of years will have passed on the Earth. And if you have travelers that travel far away and then return, well, pretty much everybody that they knew that lived on the Earth, barring the possibility of extending human life by thousands of years, everyone will have perhaps passed. And so this is a big problem. And so while, yes, you can take advantage of time dilation in this way, it's not satisfactory. But there is a way to make this work, and the idea is well, not to leave your civilization on Earth, but to actually move your entire civilization into a time dilated frame. And so this really reframes the problem. So, and the idea is that you move your entire civilization into a time dilated frame, and if you have travelers, you synchronize the trips so that everybody ages at the same rate. And of course, there were three scenarios that we considered with this idea in mind. Of course, one would be to build your civilization around fast orbits around supermassive black holes. And in this way, your civilization can more or less stay in one spot. It's moving very fast, it's taking advantage of time dilation, but at least it's in one spot. Another possibility that we considered, and at the time we thought it was entirely new, and we were wondering why this had not been considered before. But the idea is to construct a network of vessels that accelerate linearly in the manner that Carl Sagan described. And so the idea is you would have ships accelerating back and forth between a set of nodes. And of course, after we published the paper, we discovered that Kevin Duff had presented a similar idea. Of course, he made different assumptions than we did, and he did not publish it in a paper. He presented it in a talk, and so that's why we didn't. That's why we didn't see it. But he presented a form of this idea back in 2019. So we weren't exactly the first to come up with an idea like this. But the third concept, as far as we can tell, it's new. And the idea is to construct a ring of black holes. And so basically, it's a way of scaling up the idea of fast orbits around supermassive black holes. And of course, when we did the analysis, we had rules. The rules are summarized in these constraints. The rules are we don't employ new or exotic physics, and we stick basically to textbook general relativity. That's Einstein's theory of gravity, which I will, I guess, summarize shortly, maybe even in the next slide. Biology limits acceleration to 1g. If you exceed 1g by a significant amount over long periods of time, I don't think human biology can tolerate it very well. Perhaps there is some wiggle room, but not much. And of course, if you imagine inertial shielding, well, according to general relativity, acceleration and gravity are equivalent to each other, and that is the equivalency principle of Einstein. And so, if you want to do something like inertial shielding, you do need to invoke new physics. The last constraint is that energy is conserved and it's positive, and of course that excludes things like warp drives, wormholes, and at least all the known ways of doing a faster than light travel. So, as far as I'm aware, you need negative energy in order to make faster than light travel work. There is one claim that you can avoid negative energy, but that claim has not been universally accepted. So I'll leave it at that. So I'll quickly go over general relativity. So general relativity is Einstein's theory of gravity that was proposed 111 years ago now. In short, it's summarized by the statement, space-time tells matter how to move, and matter tells space-time how to occur. And in particular, we describe space-time as some geometric object, and this geometric object tells us how things fall. Gravity is equivalent to acceleration due to curved spacetime, and that is Einstein's equivalence principle. And general relativity, one of the things it predicts is black holes. It predicts that gravity can be so strong that it traps light within a surface, which we call the event horizon. And in black holes, you can get very extreme amounts of time dilation near the horizon. Time dilation can be very strong, and light can orbit around black holes.